Welcome to Shisha Network, your go-to online learning platform. Today, we'll explore how to manage and control changes in your projects. We've already covered how to keep tabs on your project's progress. It's crucial to oversee every aspect of the project and maintain control throughout its lifecycle. But how do we actually keep things under control? Well, there's a specific approach we can use. It's called integrated change control. As you might expect, projects often run into bumps along the way. When you're monitoring the project's progress, you might notice things aren't quite lining up with your initial plan. In short, what's happening doesn't match what you expected. How do we handle these differences, or ones we think might come up later? We have a dedicated procedure for this. To deal with these issues, we refer to this process as control. So how does this control work? We implement what's called integrated change control throughout the process. This means reviewing all change requests, looking for anything that doesn't make sense or doesn't match up. We then submit change requests for these issues. After that, we review all these requests and decide which ones to approve. So, what's the next step? There's a detailed process to follow. In fact, we can't overstate its importance. What could go wrong without it? The project could suffer massive scope creep. Scope creep could lead to budget overruns. Deadlines could be severely pushed back. Without proper management, the project could spiral into chaos. That's why it's absolutely crucial. Once implemented, it significantly reduces overall project risks. So, how do we actually go about this? First, we start with a work performance report, along with any change requests, as key inputs. Naturally, this ties into our change management plan, which outlines how we handle changes. Then we apply specific techniques, including various analysis methods, like alternative analysis and cost-benefit analysis, as well as decision-making tools, to decide whether to implement the change or not. We might decide by taking a vote. We'll get into the details of voting later on. This part isn't crucial to our main discussion. Once we've gone through all this, we end up with what's called an approved change request. So what exactly is an approved change request? Well, it basically means we have a dedicated change control board, or CCB, that looks at these change requests and decides they're okay after analyzing them. They give it the green light. And that's how we get an approved change request. Now, regarding these approved changes, when we discussed project management earlier, we talked about executing the original plan on one hand and implementing approved changes on the other. This means we need to incorporate these changes into our project execution. Let me walk you through this process. First, let's look at a few key points. First, about change requests. They can significantly impact the project. You know, there's a saying we often use: don't treat symptoms in isolation. Why not? Because the body is a system. The human body is an interconnected system. An issue in one area can impact others. Projects work the same way. A change request can affect project scope. It may demand additional resources. It might impact the timeline and influence the budget. Even overall quality might suffer. So changes have far-reaching effects. So, change requests in a project usually affect many different aspects. When we're analyzing these requests, we can't just look at them from one angle. We need to consider multiple perspectives in our analysis. We have to think about all the areas it could possibly impact. That's one point to consider. Another thing about working on projects is, you can actually submit a change request at any time, really. But just because you submit one, does that mean it has to be done? Not necessarily. You're always free to submit one. That's another important point. Secondly, anyone can submit a request. This includes all relevant stakeholders. However, all change requests must be documented in writing. Why is this necessary? I'm sure some of you have faced this situation at work. During the final project review, the client claims, "I never asked for this." You insist they did mention it before, but you can't produce any evidence. This occurs because clients often make numerous changes, yet you've kept no records. This often results in numerous complications during the final acceptance phase. It leads to a lot of back-and-forth arguments and heated disagreements. To prevent these issues, in principle, all change requests should be documented and distributed to all stakeholders. This ensures everyone can see what has been mutually agreed upon. That's one point. Now, for the second point. When we're discussing the matter of changes, there's a crucial moment in the project timeline, before the project baseline is set. If you want to make changes during this period, you can simply go ahead and make them, without going through the formal change control process. However, once the baseline is established, and the project plan is finalized, any proposed changes after that point must follow the integrated change control process. Let's take another look at project management as a whole, to better understand how everything fits together. Our comprehensive change control system is set up to identify various change requests, document these requests, evaluate their impact, make a decision on each, whether to approve or reject. If approved, we implement the change and monitor its progress, assessing its effectiveness. This entire process is our change management system. It's a subsystem of our configuration management system. Now, the configuration management system doesn't just track changes. It also manages docs, processes, templates, and data. It oversees all project content. That's what it does. It's part of the broader PMIS. The PMIS covers all project-related info, like lessons learned logs and organizational best practices. It's all in there. The PMIS itself is part of the overall PM system. And naturally, this PM system, is there really such a system out there? Well, not exactly. It's more about a logical framework, you see. It's a set of rules for the whole project management process. Now, our Project Management Information System, or PMIS, focuses specifically on managing information. It's just one part of the larger project system. That's how it fits in, logically speaking. So, configuration control and management deal with all the project deliverables, document templates, while change management just looks at specific project files, deliverables and change requests. Configuration management distinguishes between these. Configuration management encompasses change management. This illustrates their relative scope, but it's rarely tested in exams. A basic understanding is all you need. Now, let's look at a detailed flowchart to illustrate how to implement change control. Let's start with this flowchart. What exactly is a flowchart? It's a visual representation of task steps. We begin right here. Next, we have the second, third, and fourth steps. These are represented by lines with arrows. Additionally, this is what we call a swim lane diagram. Each section you see here is a swim lane. Every swim lane corresponds to a specific role. Flowcharts created using this method are much easier to understand than traditional flowcharts. Now, let's talk about the software used to create this. You can easily create this using VSort. Alternatively, WPS Office works just as well. Both options are user-friendly and convenient. Let's take a look at an example. Let's say we're managing a project, and our company, let's call it Western SIA. An instructor requests a change. They want to reschedule a class. So, with this rescheduling, who do you think it would affect? First, staff would need to update the schedule. That's one thing. Second, it impacts a lot of students. The class was set for today. Now it's pushed to next week. Many students complained, "You wasted our time. I've already cleared my schedule for today." So your decision could disrupt many people's plans. To handle such impacts, there's typically a project manager involved. Or in this case, a course director, who assesses the potential fallout from rescheduling. They then report these findings to the Change Control Board, or CCB. Believe it or not, our company actually has a CCB. They decide if the change gets the green light. Is the impact manageable? If it seems fine, they'll probably approve it. It'll get the green light. If it's not okay, it'll mess up the schedule for future classes and put students in an awkward position or cause other unexpected issues, like conflicting with other important dates. In that case, it's a no-go. If it's rejected, they'll inform the teacher who requested the change. That's the end of it. It's done. But if they approve the schedule change, then those admin folks will likely adjust the timetable. The admin staff are the ones who make these changes. After they adjust it, they might not be able to publish it right away. Usually, after they're done, they'll have some course director check it over to double-check everything. If they find problems during the check, if there are issues, they can't just implement it as is. So you'll need to revise the schedule once more. Then double-check for accuracy. If the revised schedule matches your final version, and the academic staff approves it, then you're good to go. After the course director's final approval, staff will be assigned to update the schedule. Specifically, our operations team member will handle the schedule update. Once the update is complete, the process is finished and wrapped up. Here's how a change process works. There are several key steps in this process. First, someone submits a change request. Next, the impact of this request is analyzed. This analysis covers various aspects, including project scope, timeline, budget, and quality. These factors are relevant across industries, but may vary based on your specific field. Once the analysis is done, it goes to the Change Control Board, which is responsible for approval. Approval essentially means deciding to accept or reject. They're only responsible for approving or rejecting. It's basically a review committee. But who actually does the work? That's handled by specific people. So, once the change is approved, who actually teaches the class? It's still the teachers, of course. And who makes changes to the course? The operations team does that. So teams are still responsible for implementing changes. That's how it works. Let's break down the process into 6 key steps. Let's take a look. First, submit a change request. Second, analyze the impact of the change. Third, the CCB reviews and approves the change. Fourth, implement the approved change. Fifth, monitor the implementation. Assess the progress. Finally, close out the change process. Anyone can submit a change request. However, it must be documented. This is the first and crucial rule. It should be recorded in a configuration management system. In other words, if your company uses a version control system, you should log it in this version control system. This makes it easier to track changes later and analyze its impact. Because the impact is often multifaceted, it can affect various areas. So the project manager needs to guide the team in analyzing and discussing the impact together. This impact is usually reported to the change control board. Since the CCB typically includes senior management, who are well informed about your project, they might not have your in-depth knowledge. So, filling them in on the context and details helps them make more informed decisions. They'll assess each change request to decide whether to approve or reject. They might also, for critical issues or major concerns, escalate to senior management for their decision. One more thing to note. Generally speaking, change control board. In a large corporation, there are often multiple levels of change control boards. For minor issues, these are composed of middle management. This level of CCB addresses and approves or rejects changes. For more significant issues, higher-level executives are involved, with top management handling major concerns. Some change requests don't impact the project baseline and can be handled differently. For smaller issues, the project manager typically has the authority to decide. Once the change control board approves, what's next? We move on to implementing the changes. Change implementation usually requires updating the project plan, communicating with all parties involved, ensuring all stakeholders are on the same page, and guiding the team to execute the changes. Makes sense. How's the implementation going? We need to continue monitoring the process. Our entire process so far has been about project monitoring. Project monitoring involves keeping track of execution and comparing it to the original plan. Now, we need to implement the approved change requests. We'll monitor their implementation and compare it to the original plan or approved changes, combined with previous line. This monitoring helps us understand how these changes are being implemented in practice. Finally, we reach the closure phase. In this phase, we need to summarize all the project information, compile and organize, then file the information for record keeping, and inform all stakeholders. This covers the whole change management process. Now, I'd like you to remember this 6-word phrase. Changes follow protocol. For most change-related matters, remember, changes follow protocol. This protocol is the one to follow. Don't flat out reject client requests. Don't immediately approve them either. Instead, let changes follow protocol.